Ready?
Ready? Okay. Vanchakapa Turischa, Kripasindu Evacha, Patitanam Pavanabhya, Vaishnavabhya Namanamaha. Om again to the Mandasya, Ganjana Slakya, Chakshur Militamina, Tashmeshi Guru Namaha. Srinada Pisanichana, Taro Apisaishana, Amani Namanadena, Kietni Sadahari. Satyani Kampam Susam Chamano, Bunjai Vakmakitam Vipakam, Hit Vakmaku Bividam Namaste, Jivata Yomukti Satdaya Bak, Vachavigam Manashakrodavigam, Jivavigam Udaro Pashtavegam, Etam Veganyo Vishaheta Dira, Savam Makbiman Pritivim Sashashyat, Anya Blasta Sunyam Gyan Kamrina Vitam. Kalenya Krishna Ushilam Bhakti Uttama Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasdi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hari Hari, Hare Ram 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 Hari Hari. Please accept my millions and millions of Dandavat pranams to my beautiful family of devotees across the world. It's always so relishable to see some of you, I can see your faces, some of you I can see your names, but I can feel that you're all present, which is beautiful, to listen to Harikatha. Today is our Acharya Avatar Day, and we're begging for the grace of and mercy from our acharyas in our build up to the next Kartik Parikram of 2021. And today we're very fortunate we're going to be hearing about the Vasanta Rasa-yatra from our beloved Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bhagavad Maharaj. I have to say I'm always very happy when Maharaj is presenting to us, because I feel his natural ebullience and natural enthusiasm for all the subject matters, and it's so easy to hear Katha from someone as enthusiastic, committed, and firmly positioned in faith as Maharaj. We're very fortunate to have his beautiful association, Harikatha. So he's coming in from Houston in the United States, and Maharaj, if you want to put your video on, and perfect timing, Maharaj, beautiful. Well, big warm welcome. I was just saying, so happy to hear your enthusiastic Katha, Maharaj. When I was putting my tilak on before the program, I was feeling that enthusiasm from you, and that was injecting me with enthusiasm in my heart. So thank you. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. My Dandavat pranams to one and all. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militanyena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manavistam Stapitanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamaya Dadanti Swapadanti. First of all, I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Diksha Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Satarasata Sisi Matsula A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pada Satarasata Sisi Matsula Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev. And I offer my humble obeisances to my Shiksha Gurus and to the Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my humble Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are listening today. Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranam.
Maharaj, could I beg you to increase the volume on your mic somehow, please?
Increase the volume on.
Yes, it's not a frequent request, that one, Maharaj, but it is today.
Input level. How's that?
Oh yeah. Whoa. I can see everyone's turning their volumes down now. Perfect. Blast us. Wake us up, Maharaj. Come on.
Okay. I really greatly appreciate your kind words to this old man. If I have any enthusiasm or any inspiration or anything, it's by the mercy of my Shiksha and Diksha gurus, Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev. My only qualification is that I simply try to pass on the message as I've heard it. That's what my Srila Prabhupada used to say repeatedly. So we have so much to go over today that it would take me, to do it all justice, it would take me 6 hours. But since we don't have 6 hours, I'm going to do the best that I can in the time allotted. So, the acharyas that are to be honored today, first of all, this is Balaram Rasa-yatra. This is the day that Lord Balaram comes back to Vrindavan to dance with the gopis. And we learn from the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the 10th canto that when Krishna and Balarama together with the gopis, a large group of gopis, the demon Shankachuta comes to steal some gopis. And when he comes to steal some gopis and he runs off with them, Krishna and Balaram chase after Shankachuta with large trees that are, they just, pull up from the ground and they come running with, you can imagine these two cowherd boys running down the road with large trees in their hands. And they move very quickly, and Shankachuta realizes that they're going to catch up to him. So he lets go of the gopis and runs off. So then Krishna asks those gopis to stay with Balaram and that Balaram will protect them. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur indicates in the commentary that what Krishna is essentially saying is that these are your gopis to enjoy. I have Radha and Lalita and Vishaka and all these others. And this group is your group. This is for you. And so when he comes back to Vrindavan to perform this Rasa-yatra and dance with the gopis, it's these gopis that he's dancing. Essentially, they're the gopis that he's dancing. Okay, so we've covered Rasa-yatra. Now, before I go to talk about Vasanta Rasa-yatra, which is Krishna's dance with the gopis, we're going to talk about, briefly, we're going to go over, first of all, today is the appearance days of both Vamsivadana Gosvami and Syamananda Prabhu. And also one other personality, Srimad Bhaktivilas Bharti Goswami Maharaj, who was a very dear disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada. He built a mutt in Mayapur called the Rupanuga Bhajan Ashram, and he petitioned the government to have Sridham Mayapur recognized as a sacred place in order to curb tourism and illicit activities, thus ensuring the sanctity of the holy Dham. So that was Sri Srimad Bhakti Vilas Bharti Goswami Maharaj's claim to fame in terms of the service that he rendered to his guru and the holy Dham. Vamsivadana was actually born in the house. Vamsivadana Thakur was born in the house of Madhava, Sri Madhava Das, and Mahaprabhu was actually present in the house of Sri Madhava Das along with Advaita Acharya when he was born. So I guess that's about as auspicious as it gets, to be born in the house with Lord Chaitanya and Advaita Acharya in the house. So Vamsivadana actually performed service to Vishnu Priya, Mahaprabhu's widow, and the distress they experienced in separation from Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu's instruction that they worship his deity form so as to relieve some of their suffering. So, of course, Vishnu Priya made this beautiful deity form of Mahaprabhu out of neem, and she worshipped that form along with Vamsivadana. So that is his claim to fame. Syamananda Prabhu, there's so much to talk about Syamananda Prabhu. I will try to go through it as briefly as possible. First of all, Syamananda Prabhu, he was a disciple of, he was not a disciple of Jiva Goswami. He was a disciple of another person who was one of the Dwadasa Gopals, the Dwadasa Gopals of the Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda had 12 cowherd boys from from Vrindavan that appeared with him, and they performed pastimes with him. And Syamananda Prabhu's guru was one of them, so he was a cowherd boy. And he had explained to Dukhi Krishna, his disciple's name, he gave him the name Dukhi Krishna, that he should go and study under Jiva Goswami because he saw that Dukhi was a good scholar and that he also had an inclination toward Manjari Bhav, which was not the Bhav of his Gurudev. His Gurudev was in the Bhav of, he was in the Bhav of cowherd boy. And so therefore, what he did is he sent him to be with Jiva Goswami. And while he was with Jiva Goswami, he performed many famous pastimes. And those pastimes were key to him receiving a special name. Yes, his name was Hridoy Chaitanya. That's Dukhi Krishna's guru, Hridoy Chaitanya. And he sent him to stay with Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami, first of all, used to engage Syamananda in the service of sweeping the Rasa Stali where Radha and Krishna would perform Ras Lila. And while doing that service, he one day found a bangle, actually a nupur, that went around the ankle of Srimati Radhika and had come off during her dancing, and it was on the ground. And she found that he found that bangle, and he realized that this was Radhika's bangle, and he wanted to return it to her. Lalita and Vishaka came like two young girls looking for the bangle to bring back to their Swamini. And Shamananda was very reluctant. He said, I want to give this bangle to Swamini. So they said, well, you can't do that because you're in a male body. And she never sees anyone in a male body except Krishna. So he said, well, then you make some arrangement. So they did. There was a little pond there, and they took Shamananda and they dipped him in the pond. And when he came out of the pond, he had the body of a Manjari. And so he brought the bangle back to Srimati Radhika. Srimati Radhika then took that nupura, that ankle bracelet, and she impressed it on his nose and his forehead. And you see how we have tilak. Our tilak comes down like this in a circle, and then we have a leaf, people leaf. But she brought this circle down here. So you'll see them in Vrindavan sometimes. They make the circle on the nose and come all the way up on both sides from the nose. Those people are in the Shamananda Sampradaya. They're followers of Shamananda. And they worship Krishna through that mood of Shamanandas as a Manjari servant of Srimati Radhika. Srimati Radhika also gives Shamananda a murti of Krishna from her heart. And he takes that murti back to Jiva Goswami after he finishes this whole Lila, this pastime. He turns back into Dukhi Krishna, and he goes to Jiva Goswami with the murti and the tilak imprinted on his head, and tells the whole story. And so Jiva Goswami says, okay, now that you've been given Shama Sundar by Srimati Radhika, you are now Shamananda. And this is how he gets the name Shamananda, which initially disturbed Hridoy Chaitanya when he came to Vrindavan. But then when he understood everything that happened, he was pacified and he allowed it to go. So his Shamananda's deity from his heart, the deity of Shama Sundar, is there at the Radha Sham Sundar temple on the same road that goes to the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. It's just down the road from Radha Damodar temple. And later on, the Maharaja Bharatpur, in his basement, he had all of these large rooms which he stored jewels and gold and grains and, all these valuable things. And his servants came and got him one day and brought him down to the gold room, and standing on top of the gold room, on top of the pile of gold he had in the room, standing on top of the pile of gold was a murti of Srimati Radhika made of gold. So they brought it to the Syamasundar temple, and so that murti is with Shamananda. So both the deities, Shamananda Shamasundar comes from the heart of Srimati Radhika, and Radharani comes from the pile of gold in Bharat Maharaj, the Maharaja Bharatpur's basement. And they're both self-manifest deities, and they are present there. And so we are very fortunate that he is also in our line. He, Shamananda, eventually helps Narottam and Srinivas to take the books all across the country and put them in different kingdoms and kings' palaces and temples, because that's how books were read in those days. Each time you wanted a book, Narottam Das and the others would write out the whole book by hand and then make a new palm leaf copy. And then that palm leaf copy was given to the king's library or the temple library. And if anyone wanted to hear the information in that book, they would come and give a donation to the Brahmins, and the Brahmins would recite the book to the people. And this is how you learned in those days. Most of the people didn't know how to read and write until personalities like Tulsi Das and Jagannath Das came along and translated the scriptures into local languages. And then later, Hanuman Prasad Poddar became very famous in having all of the major literatures translated into Hindi for the general public in India. And of course, our Srila Prabhupada and our Srila Gurudev. Srila Gurudev translated all of the Bengali books into Hindi. Then the Hindi books were translated into English under his guidance. Prabhupada translated so many books into English for our benefit. So that tradition is there in our line. Shamananda made a great disciple in Orissa called Rasikananda. Rasikananda started a lineage in Orissa. All throughout Orissa, there's so many disciples. And way down the line, two of the disciples got married and they gave birth, grand disciples of Rasikananda and Shamananda. They got married and they gave birth to His Divine Grace Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj, who was born in Jagannathpur. So we are very fortunate to be in this connection and line with Syamananda Prabhu and have such a glorious personality as Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj coming in his line and eventually in our line with Srila Prabhupada. So now we've talked about the Acharyas. We've done a brief talk about Balaram Rasa-yatra. Now we're going to talk about Vasanta Rasa-yatra. So Vasanta Rasa-yatra is the Rasa-yatra that is performed, the Ras Lila that's performed in the spring, the Vasant season. In the fall, the Sarad Ras is performed during Kartik Mas, on Kartik Purnima. That's the Sarad Ras. That's the day that Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj left this world and went back to the spiritual world to continue to assist Sri Krishna, Srimati Radhika in the performance of the Sharad Ras. So there is a distinction between Sharad Ras and Vasant Ras. And if we read Srila Gurudev's commentary on the 10th canto, we will find that the gopis in Sharad Ras were sadhana siddha gopis as well as nitya siddha gopis. There was a mix. Some of them had been in Ram Lila. They were the Rishichari gopis. who had seen Lord Ram in the forest and wanted to embrace him. And Lord Ram blessed them that in his next manifestation as Krishna, they would get a chance to embrace him and dance with him in Rasa-yatra, in Ras Lila. Then there was the Shrutichari gopis. They were the ones who were the prayers to the personified Vedas in the previous day of Lord Brahma when they glorified Sri Krishna. That prayers to the personified Vedas is there in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And they wanted to become gopis and dance with Krishna. So they got a chance in this day of Brahma to become gopis and dance with Krishna. Then there was all the girlfriends of Sita Devi who wanted to marry Ram and embrace him. They came as gopis, sadhana siddha gopis in the time of Krishna. Then there was all of the 100 gold murtis of Sita Devi that were made so that Lord Ram could perform the Ashwamedha Yajna. And those gold murtis were brought to life by Vishwamrita through mantra. And they wanted to be with Lord Ramachandra and to worship and to embrace Ram. And so they all came as sadhana siddha gopis. So many personalities were there as sadhana siddha gopis. Many of them associated with Lalita and Vishaka and became qualified to go to the Rasa-yatra and dance. The Rasa-yatra, not the Rasa. I keep saying Rasa-yatra. Rasa-yatra, to go to the Ras Lila and dance with Krishna. There were some gopis, although almost all of them were married, but there were some gopis who, when they became married, fell into the mood of Grihastha ashram and had relations with their husbands and had children. So Gurudev, in the purport, he translates the purport of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that talks about how because of this, they were the ones whose husbands, we read in Krishna book also, the husbands blocked the door and those gopis couldn't leave to go to the Ras Lila. Why? Because they had engaged in relations with their husbands, so they were not qualified to go and practice the dancing of the Ras Lila with Krishna and be with him. When they laid down in their beds and realized that how many births they had taken, how many millions of years they had gone through to come to this point, to go to dance in Rasa-yatra, in Ras Lila, and they were stopped because of this mistake. They completely regretted what they did, and lying in their beds, they wept and they burned up their material aspirations. The last bits of contamination were completely burned up and dissolved and evaporated, and they achieved fit spiritual bodies to go and dance with Krishna in the Rasa Lila. So try to understand. I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again in the holistic bhakti concerning the structure of the body. You have the gross physical body, and then you have the subtle body, and the connection between the two with the chakras. And when the subtle body dissolves, Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 25th chapter, verse number 33, when the subtle body dissolves, then the spiritual form manifests. But there is another layer. There is another layer around the spiritual body that's even more subtle than the mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are called the koshas. And there's 5 koshas. Anandamoya kosh, which is centered around the genital area. Not Anandamoya, Anamoya kosh, which is centered around the genital and navel area. So this is the area where you learn how everything about the world through taste. You see a child, a baby, how do they learn about the world? They take it and put it in their mouth. Everything is done by the tongue. So this is Anamoya kosh. Once they hit 2 years old, then they get to Pranamoya kosh, which is connected with the Manipur chakra, the self-identity that we have in the small intestinal area. And now the child realizes, you know what? My body is separate from my mother's body. I don't have to do everything that she tells me to do. I can say no. And they begin the no, and they move in that direction. And this is the terrible twos and so on. And this is where one learns how to defend themselves of who they are, okay? So this is the Pranamoya kosh. Then we get to Gyanamoya kosh. Now the kid's in school and he's learning about the world. So he learns knowledge from the teacher, and those impressions are there in the Gyanamoya or Manamoya kosh, connected to the mind and the heart. Beyond that is the Vijnanamoya kosh. This is the realization between the subtle body and the spiritual body, between the gross body and the subtle body, and the subtle body and the spiritual body. Vijnanamoya kosh, third eye. This is where that kosha lives. And then Anandamoya kosh is part of the Sahasra chakra. So these 2 koshas, Vijnanamoya kosh and Anandamoya kosh, remain when the subtle body dissolves. The other 3 koshas also go away. Anamoya, Pranamoya, Gyanamoya. But these 2 remain, and they have to be let go of. And they, according to Bhagavatam, they carry with you all the way to your birth in Goloka, Gokula, not Goloka, in Gokula, in the Bom Lila. It can be carried with you there, and it can affect your consciousness there, as it did with these gopis. And they were forced to burn up, what they were burning up was those 2 koshas. No, I don't want this. I want Rasa Lila. I want Rasa Lila. So they burned it up. And then Gurudev said they either went that night or in a future Rasa Lila to join with Krishna. But initially they were prohibited because they had relations with their husband. This is all in Gurudev's commentary, his translation of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami, who says there was some defect in those gopis in his commentary. So try to understand how subtle material nature is. It goes all the way to Bom Lila if you're not paying attention. It goes all the way to Bom Lila. It can carry there. It can be with you there. So very, very subtle. So Sarad Ras is about training up the sadhana siddha gopis, that they can become qualified to be in Ras Lila. And so when Srimati Radhika leaves the Ras Lila of Sharad Ras, she leaves because she sees that the sadhana siddha gopis have become proud. Here they are, they've actually made it to the Ras Lila. They're dancing with Krishna. And they can't see that Krishna has expanded himself and is dancing with every one of the gopis and is principally dancing with Radharani. And so they think Krishna loves me alone and he's dancing with me alone. So this pride disturbs the mood of the Ras Lila and Radharani cannot tolerate it. So she leaves, and Krishna, seeing her displeasure, leaves with her, and the whole Ras Lila stops. Then she goes with Krishna to enjoy, and after having some pleasure together with her beloved, Krishna, the gopis are going everywhere, following around, trying to find her, and so Krishna wants to leave, and she's ready to go with him. But what she does is she feigns her own pride. And there's two reasons behind her feigning the pride. One is that she doesn't want to enjoy Rasa Lila and pleasure with Krishna alone. This is the quality of a devotee. They're not happy to be with Krishna alone. They want to share the love. They want all of the devotees to share in the love. It is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya that when Radharani is with Krishna in the Kunj, engaged in deeply secretive conjugal pastimes, she's broadcasting that bhav, that ecstasy that she's feeling, to all of her manjaris and all of her intimate associates, and they're all feeling what she's feeling, only more intensely. The whole mood of Goloka is about how to share the love. How to share the love. And so Radharani, she doesn't want to just go off with Krishna alone. She wants to share the love with the other gopis. She wants them to be involved in the Rasa Lila. But that's her intimate friends, Lalita, Vishaka, etc. That's what she wants for them. But then there is the sadhana siddha gopis who haven't learned how to surrender to the proper mood, and she wants to train them. And so for these two reasons, she feigns pride and she says to Krishna, oh, I can't walk any further. Let me go on your shoulder. And so Krishna says, okay, just come up on my shoulder. And then when she goes to get up and go on his shoulder, he's gone. So then she's sitting there alone, and she's waiting. She's waiting for the gopis, and the gopis all see her and they all start crying, and they feel bad that Radharani has been left alone by Krishna. Now they're starting to develop the mood of sharing the love, because they're recognizing that she's been abandoned by Krishna, and now they want to assist her to be with Krishna and to share the love. And so Radharani shows them the path to getting from where they are to Krishna. And what is that? It's the Gopi Gita. It's Sankirtan. This is the original Sankirtan. The Sankirtan of the Gopi Gita, they sing the glories of Krishna. And by singing the glories of Krishna, Jaite te dikam janmana braja, you have gloriously taken your birth in Braj. The greatest authorities in scripture, the gopis, are telling us that Krishna actually took birth in Braj, not Mathura. They are the most authoritative persons. They are our gurus. So here we get such a wonderful pastime where Radharani and the senior gopis, Lalita, Vishaka, and others, are training the new sadhana siddha gopis in the mood that is required for them to be able to enter into the Rasa Lila, the process of sharing the love. And so this comes as Sharad Ras. And when they achieve that consciousness, unified consciousness as a group, Krishna then appears and the Rasa Lila begins. And this is Sharad Ras. The Sant Ras, different. The Sant Ras is only Nitya Siddha Gopis, and it doesn't take place in Braj, it takes place in Govardhan. Why Prabhupada and Gurudev kept saying, I want to go to Govardhan, I want to go to Govardhan, I want to go to Govardhan. Because they're Nitya Siddha Gopis. This desire to go to Govardhan is because they're Nitya Siddha Gopis and they want to go there. They want to be part of the Ras. So now the Nitya Siddha Gopis, they're dancing in Ras Lila with Krishna. But now the problem, why Radharani leaves the Sant Ras? Because of Krishna. Krishna is the problem this time. Krishna is the one. He's dancing ecstatically with Radharani, and then he goes and he's dancing with another gopi. And he's giving her equal love and equal time. And Radharani cannot tolerate that. Varaja vipine yamuna kule mancha manohara shobita fule. Vanaspati lata tushaye aki Vanaspati lata tushaye aki Tadupari kato dakae paki, tadupari kato dakae paki, tadupari kato dakae paki. In the forests of Braj, along the banks of the Yamuna, there are enchanting platforms beautifully decorated with flowers, varieties of fruit trees, and creepers. Give satisfaction to the eyes. On them Many birds on those trees and places, many birds are singing sweetly. Malaya Anila Bahaye Dire. Alika Kula Madulo Bite. Malaya Anila Bahaye Dire. Alikula Madulo Bite Fire. Vasantira Raka Udupa Tada. Vasantaraka udupatada. Komudi bitare adare sada. Komudi bitare adare sada. Komudi bitare adare sada. A cooling breeze from Malaya hills blows gently, and a swarm of bumblebees wanders about in search of honey. The full moon of the spring season continuously distributes its soothing rays of love. Emato samaye rasika vara, arambilo rasa murali dara. Satakoti gopi majeta hari. Shatakoti gopi majeta hari. Radha Sahanache Ananda Kori. Radha Sahanache Ananda Kori. Radha Sahanache Ananda Kori. At such a time, the supreme relisher of nectarine mellows, Murlidhar Sri Krishna, begins the rasa dance in the midst of millions of lovely cowherd damsels. Sri Hari blissfully dances with Radha. Madhava Mohini Gaya Gita. Adilo Sakala Jagata Chita. Stavara Jangama Mohila Sati. Arola Chandra Valiramati. Arola Chandra Valiramati. Arola Chandra Valiramati. Singing beautiful songs, the enchantress of Madhava captivates the minds of all living beings. All moving and non moving beings are enchanted by the chaste Radhika, who has defeated the pride of Chandrabali. Shatakoti Gopi Madhavaman Rakite Narilo Korea Jata. Venugite dake Radhika nam. Venugite dake Radhika nam. Esho Esho Radhe Dakaya Sham. Esho Esho Radhe Dakaya Sham. Esho Esho Radhe Dakaya Sham. Millions of lovely cowherd damsels are unable to keep Madhava's attention. Despite their great endeavor to do so, the flute song calls the name of Radhika. Esho, Esho, Radha. Come here, Radhe, petitions. 1 billion gopis cannot satisfy Krishna. It is not possible. Only Srimati Radhika, and she has left. She has left and she has gone. And she is hiding in Man. That she does not want that Krishna should be with her now. Because Krishna has given equal love and attention to other gopis in the Rasa Lila. Bangiya Shri Rasa Mandala Tabe Radha Anveshane Chalaye Jabe Dekiya Diya Radhe Rakava Pran Deka Diya Radhe Rakaho Pran Bolia Kadeya Kana Nekana Bolia Kadeya Kana Nekana Bolia Kadaye Kana Nekana. When he goes in search of Sri Radha, the Rasa dance comes to a halt, exclaiming, "Oh Radhe! Radhe, please save my life by giving me your darshan." Kana weeps in the forest. Kotai go prema moi Radhe Radhe. Kotai go prema mai Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe go jai Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe go jai Radhe Radhe. Kotai go prema mai Radhe Radhe. O Radha, who are full of prema, where are you? Radhe, all glories to you. Deka diye prana rako Radhe Radhe. Tumara kangala tumara dakke Radhe Radhe. Radhe, give me your darshan and save my life. You are a wretched beggar. Krishna is calling out to you. Radhe, Radhe. In this way, Krishna is calling out to Radharani everywhere. He's trying to get her to come. So first, he thinks, how I will please her by calling her beautiful name. Radhe Vrindavana Vilasini Radhe Radhe. Radhe Kanumana Mohini Radhe Radhe. Radhe, you engage in amorous pastimes in Vrindavan. And you are the enchantress of my mind. Krishna. But she doesn't respond. So then he tries to praise her. Radhe Asta Saka Shiromani Radhe Radhe. Radhe Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe. Oh Radhe, you are the crest jewel among the 8 principal gopis. Out of 1 billion gopis, there are 8 principal gopis. And Krishna is saying, of those 8 principal gopis, you are the Astasaka Shiromani. You are the crest jewel of those gopis. But that does not appease Radhe. Radha Vrindavanu Vrishabhanu Nandini. Oh, you are the charming daughter of Vrishabhanu Maharaj. Just as Krishna is known as Yasodanandana, Radha is known as Vrishabhanu Nandini. But she is not appeased by him calling her by such an intimate name. Then he starts calling out for her here and there, here and there, here and there. Ekbar dake keshi gate, akbar dak, abar dake vamshivate, Radhe Radhe Gojai Radhe Radhe. In Keshigat and Vamshivat, he's calling for her. Ekbar dake niduvane, abar dake kunjavane, in niduvan and kunjavan. Akbar dake Radha Kunde, Abar dake Shama Kunde, and Radha Kunde and Shama Kunde is calling. Radhe Radhe Gojai Radhe Radhe. Bardake Kusumvane, Abar dake Govardhane, in Kusum Sarovar and in Govardhan. He is calling. Radhe Radhe Gojai Radhe Radhe. Ekbar dake Talavane, Abar dake Tamavane, Radhe Radhe Gojai Radhe Radhe. In the Talavan forest and the Tamovan forest, he called her name, but she does not respond. So, what will happen? Now, Krishna comes to Imlitala. And there, sitting under the Imlitala tree, which is right next to Gopinath Bhavan, he begins to meditate. Radha Krishna Radha Chinta Niveshana Yatsya Kantir Vilopita Sri Krishna Charanam Vande Radha Lingita Vigraha. He's meditating. I worship. This prayer is a prayer written by Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj called Radha Vinod Bihari Tatvastika. And he's explaining in this prayer the form of Krishna that he worships. He's saying, Sri Krishna Charanam Vande. I worship at the lotus feet of this Krishna. Which Krishna? Radha Chinta Niveshana, who is so absorbed in anxious thought about the separation from Srimati Radharani that Yasya Kantir Vilopita, he has assumed her golden feature, Radha Lingita Vigraha. His Vigraha, his form, has become golden like Radha. Radha Lingita and Radha Alingita. There are two meanings to this word. First, he is chanting one Radha mantra, and he is praying in this Radha mantra that please, he is chanting Radha Nam. He is chanting her holy name. Radha Sarvatsya Pashyati, and he begins to see Radharani everywhere when he is reciting her holy name. And as he does this, and when he sees Radharani everywhere, Radha Sarvatsya Pashyati, seeing her everywhere, now his form turns golden. He's completely in the mood of Srimati Radhika, and he's feeling the same pain of separation from her. Sri Krishna Charanam Vande. At the feet of this Krishna I am worshipping. I am Vandana, offering my Vandana, my pranams, my prayers at the feet of this Krishna, not any other form of Krishna. The Krishna that has submitted himself, subliminated his mood, and submitted himself at the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. When this happens, Radhika's man is broken. She leaves the kunj that she's hiding in and she runs to come and embrace Krishna. And she embraces him in a very special way in which every limb of her body embraces every limb of his. And Radha Alingita, he becomes completely golden. Nirjana Kanane Radhare Dori Malia Parana Judaya Hari Bole tu bina kahararas Bole tu bina Kahara Ras Tuhulagi Mora Varajavas Tuhulagi Mora Varajavas Tuhulagi Mora Varajavas. Embracing Sri Radha and reconciling with her in a secluded grove under the Imli Kala tree. Sri Hari revives his life. And he says, without you, what is the question of performing Ras Lila? It is only because of you that I live in Braj. Braj is actually Radharani's home, and Krishna lives there because she is there. These are what we should understand from these great teachings of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Eheno Radhika Charanatale Bhakati Vinoda Kadia Bole Tua Gana Maje Amare Gani Tua Agana Maje Amare Gani Kinkari Koria Rako Apani Kinkari Koria Rako Apani Kinkari Koria Rako Apani. Weeping at the lotus feet of this Radhika, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, count me among your personal associates and keep me as your nature. Sri Krishna Charanam Vande. It is this Krishna that our Gaudiya Vaishnav line bows down and offers its obeisance at the feet of this Krishna. This is the meaning of Vasanta-rasa from our Acharyas, and this is the conclusion of my life. Please forgive me for any mistake.
Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. There's only one word that can describe that Katha you've just shared with us, which is exquisite, totally exquisite. And thank you for the beautiful Katha with the intermissions of the singing, because actually it's something I've said to Nami Maharaj many times, because he has a different kind of melody. He plays lots of different instruments. Your instrument is your voice, and I'm a firm believer that interspersing the kirtan with the Katha actually helps the Katha go more deeply into the psyche, into the soul, into this subtle body. It's really beautiful. Thank you. Can you went a bit quiet at the end. Can you adjust your microphone again? Because we're going to ask you a couple of questions.
I don't know how it ended up going low again. Okay.
You're really good now. Don't worry, your singing came across brilliantly. There was no volume problems there. I have a few questions for you, Maharaj, but I wanted to first ask the devotees if they have any questions. To my beloved devotee family, do you have any questions for Maharaj? Please post them to me personally, and I'll select the questions. Oh, we have a raised hand. Okay, Prabhu, go ahead. Ramanath Sukha, please go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Bhagavad Maharaj?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you very much. Wonderful Katha. Very sweet nectarian singing, and I agree also the the singing and the guitar, they intertwine in this magical way. So I was very appreciative. But my question goes something like this, that the Vasanta-rasa Lila is about Balaram, and it's about training of the gopis to enter into Rasa Lila. And
No.
we know,
The Vasanta-rasa Lila, there's two Ras Leelas. Sharad Ras is training the sadhana siddha gopis.
okay,
Vasanta-rasa is having pleasure with the nitya siddha gopis. But besides the Vasanta-rasa, on this night, there's also, at a different time, a Rasa Lila with Balaram and his gopis. So they're two different Rasa Leelas.
oh, okay, yeah, it's a little technical, but yeah, I think I understand. But my question goes something along this line, and that is because of Balaram and his gopis, and we know from Prabhupada's books that and from the teachings of Narayan Maharaj and the Goswamis, that Gopeshwar Mahadev is also very instrumental in teaching how to enter into Rasa Lila.
Yeah.
And Srila Prabhupada mentions in several places also that Lord Shiva is in meditation on Sankarshan, and then Prabhupada equates Sankarshan with Balaram.
Yeah.
So you could say that Lord Shiva is also in his deep meditation on Balaram.
Yeah.
So how does that work? How does Lord Shiva, Balaram, and also Srimati Radharani work together, you could say, to
No,
free the
Radharani is
devotee?
not involved with Balaram.
Okay, but my question is to free the devotee from ahankara to actually enter into Rasa Lila proper.
Yeah. You know, just you should know, like for instance, in that Sankachuta Lila, when Krishna killed Sankachuta, he takes the jewel off of his head. And he takes that jewel and he brings it to Balaram. And he gives it to Balaram. And when he gives it to Balaram, Balaram understands that he wants this to be given to Radharani, but he doesn't give it to Radharani directly. He gives it to Danishta. And Danishta gives it to Radharani. Balaram does not interact with Radharani directly.
Okay.
And I was just reading recently something that Srila Narayan Maharaj said about understanding. Let me see if I could put this get this up in my memory bank, because it was a very recent read. All this stuff I talked about today, I've been talking about for years and years. I can't remember it exactly now, but it has. It's coming to me now. Basically, as I remember it, he was saying that this mood of Manjari Bhav and Gopi Bhav, it doesn't come from Balaram.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Some people say that it comes from Ananga Manjari, who's an expansion of Balaram.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of as you said that. Go ahead, though.
Yeah. But there's others who say that Ananga Manjari is not an expansion of Balaram. So there's some dichotomy about this.
Oh, really? I never heard that. There's a controversy. I didn't know. Yeah.
There seems to be some evidence in the scriptures of the Goswamis about that. But Sankarshan helps us to get rid of the false ego.
Yes.
The false ego is the first and primary obstacle. Just like when people see ghosts, they see the ghost of a little girl, or they see the ghost of an old man, or they see the ghost of a young woman. Why do they see that form? The ghost is the subtle body, and the subtle body has gone through millions of births. But the last body that it was attached to, that they can't even really remember, they can't even really accept that they've died. There are people who die and they don't understand that they've died. This is why we have cremation instead of burial, because it helps to cut the knot. It helps to cut the tie with that last physical body. And so the false ego is so strong that it keeps carrying the conception of the physical body that it's created over many births through many desires and many wants. And it projects that form into the ether. And so when we do see a ghost, we see the form that the false ego has created for itself. So the false ego is the linchpin. In third canto, 25th chapter, verse 33, when it says, the process of bhakti dissolves the subtle body. The subtle body means the dissolution of the false egotistical identification with all of the physical manifestations that the subtle body has gone through for millions of births.
And allows the real ego to manifest.
Yes, and then the spiritual form can manifest. But still, there is those koshas that I explained about before. And this is what those gopis carried with them all the way to Bom Lila.
Oh, okay. Now it's making more sense. I'm making the connection all the way from Boma Lila, of course.
The koshas they carried with them, not the subtle body, the koshas.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I mean, perhaps other devotees would like to ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
So many things.
Maharaj. Thank you, Prabhu. Appreciate it.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bo.
I have a question for you because we've been reading Sri Bhagavatamrita, and we're up to the part 2, the glories of Goloka, and we're in the section Bhajan, verse 112, and it's all about the gopis who are not allowed to go and see Krishna by their husbands, and they have to burn. It's like they have to burn off some of their material desires.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that in this book they're talking about the same gopis you were referring to.
Yeah, I'm speaking from Gurudev's translation of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam on the chapter of Krishna playing the flute and calling the gopis to the Ras Lila. I think it's verse number 8 or 9 in that chapter, which Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami talk about this.
Well, the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, of course, is based on the Bhagavatam, and my question to you is: we assumed from the purport, it was a little bit confusing for us, but we're assuming, this is what I'm checking with you, that those gopis are ascending sadhaks. They're ascending to their place of gopihood rather than descending, right?
Correct.
And they're the ones who are burning off what you were saying is the koshas.
Right.
So they're not burning off any subtle body. They couldn't have gone there had they had any subtle body left. They just
they're the Rishichari gopis. The Rishichari gopis.
The ones that you were referring to.
Yeah, I explained all the different gopis. Some were Rishichari, some were Shutichari, some were girlfriends of Sita, some were the gold Murti Sita. Gurudev talks about this, I think, in the Secrets of the Srimad Bhagavatam book, about all the different personalities who end up in this Rasa Lila, Srad Ras, learning how to do Rasa Lila.
So they're the ascending ones, right? So
yeah. They're
burning the kosher.
They're ascending from their previous births in whatever it was that they were. Then they give up their subtle bodies. They achieve Bhav. They're in Bhav.
Yeah.
But they're not in praying. This is why Bhav is there, because those two koshas are still there, and there's some attachment.
So those two koshas are called what? That remain?
Huh?
The two
Vijnanamoya Kosh and Anandamoya Kosh.
Which remind me means?
Huh?
What is the function of those? Remind me.
Vijnanamoya Kosh helps the living entity along with the Agna Chakra to discriminate with the intelligence between the gross physical body, the subtle body, and the spiritual body, the consciousness.
Right. And the other
and the Anandamoya Kosh experiences ecstasy. This is why in Bhav you experience ecstasy.
Right. And the other kosh?
Anandamoya Kosh.
No, you said, but the second kosh they're left with is what?
Anandamoya Kosh is Vijnanamoya Kosh and Anandamoya Kosh.
Oh, so the other one is which one? That's the discrimination between gross.
No, the Vijnanamoya Kosh is the discrimination. The Anandamoya Kosh is the ecstasy.
Is the ecstasy. Okay. So that discrimination function, how come that's not part of the subtle body?
It is when it's the Agna Chakra. It's a very subtle distinction between Agna Chakra and Vijnanamoya Kosh. Very subtle distinction.
Okay, I got a feeling this one could go on for a while, so I might pester you later.
You know, I'm laughing. I'll tell you why I'm laughing. Because you asked me the same question in Puri back in 2012.
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't have been from the same place because I hadn't read Brihad Bhagavatamrita.
You wanted to understand about the Vijnanamoya Kosh. And what its functions were. And I explained it to you at the time, but it takes a little time to explain the difference.
Yeah, that's approximately 9 years. So it's a slow process, slow burn, Maharaj. Okay. Any questions from the participants? The koshas are beyond the Maha. Oh, that's interesting.
He's asking if the koshas are beyond the Mahatattva. No, they're material. They're the most subtle sheath covering the soul.
Subtle. So it's pre-false ego then?
Huh?
It's pre-false ego.
Yeah.
Pre-false ego. Wow, I didn't think there was anything before false ego in terms of our consciousness. Wow.
Well, because once you've given up the false ego and you identify with the spiritual form, but then there's some sense in the spiritual form. Just that's why these gopis decide to get married. That's why these gopis decide to have children. That's why even the ones who didn't decide to have children, who go to the Rasa Lila dance, they still have this identification that I am alone with Krishna in the dance, and that he's not even dancing with Radharani. This is all part of that Vijnanamoya and Anandamoya Kosh. They're feeling this ecstasy and they're thinking, I alone am feeling the ecstasy. No, Paramatma doesn't remain in the heart. the question is, does Paramatma in the heart remain when the jiva advances eventually to go to Vrindavan? Is Paramatma eternally always in the jiva's heart? No. When Prabhupada talks about this, that Krishna is transferred to the heart. Krishna is transferred to the heart of the fully initiated disciple. It means Krishna in the form of Syamasundar.
Also, if you go through the expansions, Maharaj, from Karandaksha Vishnu to Garbhadaksha Vishnu to Kshirodaksha Vishnu, the third one is Paramatma. So clearly that's within the veil of it. It's not material, but it only operates, only exists. Paramatma being
It only operates within the material world. And when you go to Gokul, or when you've given up your false ego, the material connection, if you read the 26th chapter of the 3rd canto, you read how each element manifests itself. First, it's pure consciousness. Then it's consciousness contaminated by the mode of goodness, and we get the mind. Then it's consciousness contaminated by the false ego in the mode of passion, and we get the intelligence. So as soon as the false ego comes involved, according to the modes of material nature, then the subtle material elements, mind and intelligence, manifest. Otherwise, the initial element that comes from the pradhan is Shuddha Sattva, pure, undiluted consciousness.
Marge, I have to go at 8, so I've got to go. I'm a couple of minutes late. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to invoke out for myself, and but I'm going to leave everything going. So if you want to carry on asking questions, please go ahead. If you've got more time, Maharaj, or do you have to go as well?
If devotees actually have more questions, I can answer a couple of more questions.
Okay, so I'll leave.
But you know, I have certain in order to be fresh for this lecture, I took a nap this morning instead of doing certain things which I have to do now.
Right. So let's say. So I'm going to go now. Let's say. So to make sure you're fresh for your class tonight, let's give it another 7 minutes, then close out. Okay.
I have another class tonight with you.
No, you have another class yourself. I thought you need to be fresh for something else.
On Wednesday.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Wednesday, you asked me to do something for holistic bhakti in the morning.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I got them mixed up. Okay.
Yes, right? They're death.
Panchakalpa Turischa Kripasundevicha Patisampavanabhyo Vaishavabhyo Namanamaha. Thank you so much, Margie. It's beautiful. I've got about another 5 questions, but I'm just gonna harass you privately, okay?
Thank you, Janaki Dasi. Thank you, everyone. Kamala, Shamasundar, Shobharani.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Lalita.
Thank you, Maharaj. I don't even know if I'm up here, but